Hey guys, this is your host Adam Mason. Welcome to the Bearded Tog podcast. Not going to be a happy-go-lucky intro by any means, but just wanted to start off with a few quick announcements. One, as you know, we skipped last week with our putting out a podcast or any educational content just to give space and for everybody, both people who are engaging in being anti-racist and wanting to learn and speak and maybe listen to some of those episodes that we posted on the Instagram from people of color to gain their experiences. The one I would suggest is Gary Williams' episode, which is an incredible episode about his story. And it's really interesting that this stuff even happens in the creative community and like what can we do to stop it and make sure it doesn't happen again. So definitely listen to some of those episodes. But we also wanted to let you know that we did not have our workshop last night on Facebook ads with Max. We are rescheduling that to June 23rd just to kind of give you guys more space. I have seen a lot of our listeners and a lot of people in the Facebook group being positive, sharing, engaging, donating, calling our officials. And I'm so proud of you. I am also doing that stuff. My wife and I are doing it as well. And it's a journey. And if you're new here, it's going to be scary and you're going to mess up and I mess up. But we have to do this together and we have to keep going. So I just want to say I'm proud of you guys for, sharing and trying to take action and just trying to be there. So I really, really appreciate that. Our Black and brown communities for centuries have dealt with police brutality, systemic racism, and now there's a spotlight on it again, hopefully the biggest one. And, honestly, I hope it's the last one, but I don't know if it'll be, but we have to keep pushing as much as we possibly can. So without getting any too crazy on here, I just wanted to say thank you and encourage you guys. And it's been really, really cool to see you guys push. And so, June 23rd, Facebook Ads Workshop with Max Sadiq. He does Evie Rups, The Hart University, Lindsay Roman, Maddie May from Adventure Insteads, all of their ads. So he's really, really good. It'll be really, really fun. And we're looking forward to it. But until then, we're taking some time. We're just going to listen. Our guest today is Paul Wu, who's an incredible, incredible photographer. We recorded this before the last 2 weeks, but at the same time, he's actually been in New York taking a few photos and protesting. So really, really cool guy. Love him, love his perspective. So without any further ado, here's Paul Wu. So Paul, you are an avid foodie, as we talked about, and we kind of talked this a little bit about pre-show, but I just want to know, what is what's your favorite food, and then if that's not tied to a place, or maybe it is, where is the favorite place that you got that favorite food at?
There isn't a favorite place. I think it gets more difficult as older I get, and the more places I eat. Because you really can't trust yourself. You really can't, because there are certain things I never used to like younger. And as I grown older, it just tastes different. Or I've learned to appreciate it better. I don't know. It's really different. I think there is a difference between places where there isn't as much passion to be made into the food versus places that actually do put effort into it. Okay. And a lot of that is very, very similar to photography, for example. It's just for me, I love photography, I love weddings, I love all of that. But I needed to find another creative outlet, right? And or it was more of we look at photos and you can tell between a good photo or a bad photo.
Sure.
Right? But it's usually that very, very small percentage of difference that really makes you go click and go, holy crap, this makes it an amazing photo.
Yeah.
And I just woke up one day and said, well, if I had that kind of passion with photography, then I wonder what other things in life have that same intensity. What's the, and food was one of those things. I've always loved eating. And yeah, so for me, food is also another way to really understand the environment's culture too. So,
Yeah.
um, which a lot of people don't realize is, yeah, when you go to another place, another country, it doesn't taste quite the same, or may taste better,
Sure.
but
Yeah.
it's really in reflection of the resources they have around them.
Yeah.
That's so it's interesting to see you go to different places and see how different it tastes, and also you also self sabotage yourself too with food, because say you save up thousands of dollars to go on this trip to Italy or wherever, Asia, and you know you go, you take time off and you go and you invest so much time and energy for this. I think you're going to trick your mind that whatever you eat is going to taste amazing, right? Like
Yeah.
you're less stressed out,
Yeah.
you're amazed by the environment, you're intrigued by the interactions you have with people, and you eat this food, and maybe you're going to self-sabotage yourself saying this food's worth it because you invested so much time.
So yeah, it's funny with I know for a lot of people their relationship with food, and I love that you related it to photography of like the culture and the environment that you have to dive into, and at least with people, right? Like if you're photographing people, if you're photographing landscapes, it might be less of this, but like you've got to, the dynamics and everything is changing with the way that people change so often is going to be different. And then with food, like how you might sell yourself short too. I realized that like you're exactly right, because if you pay all this money to go on vacation, you already want it to be good, and then in addition, like you said, you're relaxed and you're chill and whatever, and then even too, are we eating food in our normal lives in the best way, right? Like fast food is, usually, like I know for me, if I'm like stressed or too busy, I'm not thinking, oh, let me go have like a 2.5 hour meal and take my time and like enjoy this thing. I'm like, okay, I just need something now and I want it to taste good and make me happy. And so you're like eating out of this anxiety. And I think the same thing goes for like for on wedding day. But like there's a difference between like, hey, we don't want to take too long to do this, but let's enjoy the moment and embrace this time, versus like, let's just get it done,
Yeah, I think there is a level of pacing and a level of, you see this in photographers a lot, where um, they overplan too much and they have too many expectations, and they try to mitigate their risk as much as possible to reduce their anxiety on their day, which is great. It makes sense. Where it doesn't make sense is when it doesn't go your way, when the weather doesn't turn
Yeah.
out, or what do? You haven't really trained yourself to handle that level of stress and critical thinking, and you start falling
Yeah.
apart. And I always tell couples that if your photographer is freaking out, you have a big
Yeah.
problem. Like if everyone else is freaking out, that's
Yeah.
fine, but the photographer themselves are calm, you're okay. And this can only be learned through experience, and this can only be learned through kind of letting things go. And because same thing, when I've been there, I've had weight issues and I'm resolving them now too. And the moment I get stressed, the first thing I want to do is eat.
Yeah.
Um, I recently started cooking again, and why I started cooking was I was editing and got kind of stressed out this winter and needed just to, I don't know, let loose somewhere, like,
Yeah.
and I started thinking, oh, well, maybe I should cook. And I did. I tried. And I didn't cook. It wasn't like a task for me. It was just like another activity. And it became more fun. It became more aware. And I ended up not having delicious stuff if they turned out delicious. But the pacing changed. Like I just took my time. I understood it. And by the time I got to the dish, I wasn't really hungry. I was kind of
Yeah.
like, like, okay, this is good. Like this was it. And I think I slowed it down, that process. And I think weddings the same way with shooting. We're taught so much to, I think a lot of the references we get from teaching from teachers in the industry earlier in the industry was you had to direct, you had to talk, you had to say something. um, we're grown to talk that silence is a bad thing and silence is an awkward thing. Um, but a couple years in now, I'm realizing that silence is a very powerful tool, and it can create this sort of environment and release tension in the right way.
Mm.
So, and also like constantly talking may not necessarily be benefiting anyone. Um, I know a photographer in Jersey once said, uh, "If you're talking, you're not thinking," and I was like kind of mind
Yeah.
blown, like such a very like a wisdom quote, and I was like, "Whoa!" It was like the Bill and Ted moment of like, "Whoa!" And yeah, so it's same thing, food, photography, whatever it is. I'll put in context of food. If a dish is so oily, a lot of people complain, "Oh, this dish is so oily and this is so fatty." Um, my suggestion to them is try eating it slower.
Mm.
Like if you eat it quickly, it's gonna feel very overwhelming. So slow down your
Yeah.
pace. You know, um, just everything too. Like it's all relatable to me at least. But yeah, food has been this thing where it's like, basically to me, it was photography. I enjoy it. I think I have a good grasp at it, at least in my perspective. Um, is this so different than anything
Mm.
else in my life? Did photography just pop up in my life and I was like, oh, I figured this
Yeah.
out? Or is it something that has always been in my head? I just don't know how to interpret it into other
Mm.
things. And so I really want to know. Food was something I was passionate about next. So I said, what about food can I dissect? And we just see food as this thing to fuel us,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah.
Like the necessity that we need. That's pretty much similar to how photography, people just say, we just want family photos, or we just need the standard shots and that's it,
Yeah.
right? But what really makes us feel alive is that those photos that really do storytelling or really can feel the emotion through the light, through the angles, and and we capture those. And in my contact sheet, I don't have a lot of questions. And the only questions I have is pretty much, how does my work speak to
Mm.
you? Because I don't know really. Because I'm on a subconscious level doing
Yeah.
it, but I want to hear what they say, and it's really interesting to get that feedback from my couples because it's mainly emotion based. It's usually like, of course they're going to say colors and this and that, but I kind of grasp the fact that they're drawing an emotion out
Yeah.
of it, and it helps me realize that in the end of the day, it's not about how technically good the image is or how technically good the food is. It's really about the experience and the emotion you get out
Yeah.
of it, right? Like, I haven't seen Ratatouille in the longest time, but one of the best scenes. If I spoil this for anyone, that's your fault. It's been out forever. Uh, it's that moment where the critic eats that Ratatouille. Is it Ratatouille? Yeah, and then he gets a flashback of his childhood,
Mm.
right?
Yeah.
And that's what and that's what I think chefs probably go through, and it's what we go through. Like we're trying to get people to feel through our images and stuff like that. So I started seeing these parallels, and it started with food, and now it's like, for me at least, it's like never ending. It's like everywhere. I see it
Mm.
everywhere, and in a way, it humanizes uh, everything. Like for me at least, it starts attaching that every single thing that I touch and I experience that I buy is created by
Yeah.
someone. Like someone put the thought and energy into it. And I think there's a beauty to that. And I'm not saying I'm perfect. I'm still like wasteful. I'm trying to get better at that, but I think it's something that I'm starting to learn to be aware of. So yeah.
That's awesome, dude. I want to ask you, I was kind of like looking at your site, and I met you in New York probably like 2 years ago, a year and a half ago, and I think you and I we're just enjoying this. The 501 Union had this really cool window light, and we're just messing around with it. But I was on your site, and it basically looks like you've won every photo award ever that exists. And you deserve it. I just think it's awesome. I was just like, oh my gosh, yeah, like he's the man.
No, for me it was, I've never been an ambitious person in my entire life. I was okay getting by, and I had the privilege of that too. I have a great family. My parents are amazing. Where I grew up was very privileged. Going into college and studying what I wanted to do, and I studied engineering and stuff. And right out of engineering, I got hired on to big companies like Limited Brands and Wendy's and Corporation and stuff like that. And I just never had to try. Like, I just had to get by. And for most of my life, I was okay with that. And photography, it was just a hobby for sure, like anyone else. However, and it took me a long time to realize how much I loved it. I always tell people, weddings, I got into it about 2 or 3 times as a part-timer on the weekends and failed. Like, I just could not get it. Like, the first time I was trying to copy and imitate other people, certain styles, and I just couldn't resonate with it. Even my first wedding, I was so afraid, so anxious, and so nervous to photograph it. I had my friend, who was my second photographer, shoot the bride. Like, looking back, I'm like, oh, that was a big no-no, And actually, the first wedding I shot wasn't that. It was, I asked my friend, who I wasn't invited to the wedding, if I could photograph her wedding. And she said, well, the photographer, we already hired one. Let me ask him if you can shoot with him. And at the time, I had no idea that, no idea that's a bad move, right? And I'm this like 4th string photographer with my Canon XTI, with luckily I had a 2470L with it, and the photos were great. They were amazing, and I was just like, holy shit, like I can do this. And never understanding till like 2 years later that it's not about being there, but it's about creating this energy and being present and directing, and your personality is influenced what the photos were. So it's easy just to take a photo, but like driving that wedding day is where the actual, and focusing on the photos themselves is where where it gets difficult. But yeah, I made a lot of mistakes, and I quit almost every year. I was like, oh, this is great money, and this is like $500, like $1,000, $500 on Craigslist. Like, when I hear other photographers complain about newer photographers coming in, I'm like, there is no easy way to get into this market. There really isn't, because now that I'm experienced, I'm not going to hire someone that's unexperienced or risk it, because my couples are sacrificing a lot, or risking a lot themselves hiring me. And I want to be 100% present and focused on my couples. I don't want to micromanage something else. And the difference between like a Craigslist photographer versus an experienced one is probably anywhere from $500 to $200 difference. That difference is not worth the stress to deal with it. So, and let alone, like, you get someone unexperienced, it's like you can only use like 2 photos.
Yeah, no, 100% for second shooters,
Second shooters, yeah. So I I had a very rough beginning with photography. But anyways, going back to, you know, kind of like my history of it, photography was the first thing that made me feel
Mm.
alive. It's this amazing rush when as soon as you get in. Like I always tell people, when I drive to a wedding, I get nervous and I'm like, I don't want to do this. Like what? Like even now to this day, I get that feeling. Not like I don't want to do this for them. It's more like, oh
Yeah.
no, like And when I get there, as soon as it feels like you're in a movie where whether it's John Wick or whatever, he opens up the case of his guns, or this montage when the superhero gets all his cars and stuff. Like I don't know, it's just that last. It just feels like
Yeah.
that for me,
Yeah.
where I get my camera and I put the memory card in and the battery in, and I format it. And of course, I look at the card and go, "Did I back this up properly?" Okay, format it, and then and go in. And as soon as I walk in and see the first person, it's like game on. Like I become this person that's
Yeah.
like so hyper focused, so observant. It's just nonstop. My mind is just constantly working, and it's like that scene. I don't know what movie it is where you walk out and you see math calculations everywhere.
Yeah.
I'm bad at math, so it's not calculations for me, but it's kind of like
Yeah.
that, and it just the day just slows down for me at that point, where it's like slow motion all of a
Sure.
sudden. And every single wedding it's like that for me. And I had this conversation with someone else I met at the wedding, and they sent me a photo, said, "I love this photo of me." And I said, that was taken like 3 years ago, and I still remember it. Like I still remember it to this day, how I was, where I was, and how I shot it. And I asked myself, like, how could that be so clear? And I really believe that if you can vividly remember a memory, you are actively being present.
Yeah.
Like if you just don't remember it, you're not being present. Like it's no offense. It's just I just believe it's that way.
No.
It's not if you have a bad memory or not. It's so for me, I started realizing, understanding, man, this feeling alive and being present is really very important for me to continue to never get burned out in this field. So weddings is just it's so that first time feeling so ambitious. I looked at all these people, like there's a lot of photographers I look up to, and they may not admit it, but I consider them my mentors and people I always look up to. And I was like, I want to be like them. Like I want to reach that level. Like I want to get those fearless awards. I want to get those Junebug. And for me, I actually love every single type of photography.
Yeah.
Like I had a really well-known photographer ask me, like, who's a photographer you look up to? And I just said, I don't know. Like I don't, there's a lot, there's many, but I don't look at images by who took them. I just look at them and go, wow, that just really makes me feel a certain way. And then I look at it, but then that's it. Like I don't really dive into all their other works and stuff like that. And so I started looking. I tell everyone every year or every other year, I always remember sitting in my office, my corporate world, and hiding one of my windows behind my Excel sheet that had Fearless or Junebug or anything really. And I would just look through them, to spend the whole, and just be amazed, because these weren't just images. These were, you could feel through these photos. And being in a dead cubicle, it's like, this is what brought life to me.
Sure.
Right?
Yeah.
And so I did what everyone else did, right? I tried to copy, imitate, see certain things and go, oh, I'm going to try this, try that. But never felt quite right. Like I would get close, but it just never felt right. And I really had to figure out why. Like what is it? What am I missing here? And I think the key component was the moment I stopped trying to copy and started focusing on how images made me feel, I got closer to that
Yeah.
goal. And I acted on impulse. I didn't really act by logic. I know subconsciously I have the technicals down. I don't want the horizon line to cut the heads. I don't
Sure.
want this. I think the rules of thirds may work well for me or not. I just have these things that I naturally love, symmetry and things
Yeah.
like that. But I let that go because I trust myself that I know those
Yeah.
things. And I just capture whatever makes me
That's
feel.
awesome.
And I think it made me a better photographer to a certain point. And what really what I started realizing was I would show these images to my couples and go, we all do this. We send our gallery and tell them, what's your favorite one? And they don't post, they post something
Yep.
else,
Yep.
right? We put all this effort into this photo and they pick a photo that we're like, really? Is that what you like? Like, and I think a lot of photographers get bent on that and never move on from
Mm.
that. Or they develop an ego and just say, well, the couples don't know photography. They don't know what's best for them and they move
Yeah.
on. For me, it was, I'm always defensive first. I'm always like, come on, like, how do you not? Then I backtrack a bit and try to see their perspective. And I realized it. For me, it was like this. As a photographer, when you're photographing in the moment with this amazing light, this amazing scene, you try and make your magic happen. It's exciting. It's just engaging, and you're in it, and you want to make it work, and it's just problem solving, and time is flying so fast. But the couple, they're doing nothing but standing there,
Yeah.
and they're not thinking, and time is going so slow that it's not an experience for them. So why should they be emotionally invested in a photo that they were doing nothing
Yeah.
in?
No,
right?
100%. That's a brilliant way to think about it.
Yeah, so I started creating an experience for them. I started, framing this environment for them where they can get lost, literally lost in each other, and just talk and enjoy each other's company. That when I took these photos, and as simple as this, those photos where like you have them close their eyes, look at the sun or something, and people are like, "Oh, that's the weirdest stuff. That's just weird. Like, who does that? Like, you don't do that in real life." I used to be one of those guys, and I go, "Do we not? Like, how many times have we gotten stressed out and we just take a breather in our chairs and we close our eyes and do that? We do that. We just don't do it in front of other people."
Sure, totally.
And yeah, with my couple, sometimes I'll tell them like, "Hey, look, take a deep breath. Like, today's been very chaotic. Yeah. I want you to take a deep breath and just enjoy each other's presence. Just enjoy that." And they do. And when they see those images, it's not an image where they're just standing awkwardly. It can be if you're just standing there. Hey, close your eyes, take a deep breath, and look and feel the sun on your face, and there you go.
Yeah,
right.
Yeah.
But if you kind of tell them, hey, close your eyes, imagine you're on the beach and you're facing that sun, and how does that feel? Like, you're totally relaxed. And you take that photo and it becomes more than just this silly photo. It becomes an immersive experience where they actually place themselves in there.
Yeah.
In that position. So I realized that this is really to create an optimal image. It's a collaboration between an artist as a photographer and an artist of the couple. And that's where that's where you can start really creating things. And collaboration is the solution to expanding, growing your own business. This idea that one person can handle and do everything and create an amazing business is it's very flawed. You have to work together with people. You have to learn from each other. This is why I don't like the term competition, but competition is needed to elevate each other.
Yeah.
This idea of community over competition, right? It's very important. It's also kind of being vulnerable of yourself and risking that. But we see this all over the place with photographers. I always joke around that my coworkers are my
Yeah.
competitors, or as everyone, right? Like we have Zoom chats, we have Facebook groups, we have Instagram groups, and we have to alleviate that pressure to our day to day with our
Yeah.
peers, and it's a difficult thing. If corporate world would stop treating this world like a battle between who's a better employee and employee of the year and things like that, I think they'd become more efficient if they were just, hey, we're just a team to
Yeah.
collaborate, to work together.
Yeah.
Uh, this has been shown all over industries too, where um, I just saw a documentary. I love watching interviews, and one of the interviews was Steve Jobs and Bill Gates, arguably probably the most innovative people in
Yeah.
tech.
Totally.
And we're always taught that they're enemies and they hate each other, but the way they talk to each other and stuff, they're just friends.
Yeah.
They're just like, hey, I can't live, I can't grow Apple without Microsoft, and Microsoft can't grow without Apple. So we'll exchange and we'll trade and we'll learn from each other. And I think that's just so fascinating to see, because it's easy just to dehumanize things and go, you're either with me or against me.
Yeah. Totally.
So yeah, so with for awards and stuff, I think it was just an achievement point for me. It was
sure.
like, it's all I knew how to do. The more difficult part was, once I got those, I thought it would solve all my problems.
Yeah. Totally.
I was like, once I get it, it's going to solve everything. And I got it, right? I got it, and I was like,
it doesn't matter.
Like,
yeah.
Is this it? It does matter. I think they're very important. I think it's a guide. It's a path to a point.
Okay.
Right.
Yeah.
And it's a matter of, what do you do when you're on top of there? What do you do next? Like, that's. I'm not saying I'm Kobe Bryant or LeBron James caliber in this industry, but what I'm saying is, you see this camaraderie between athletes that are peak of their level, and they could be fighting and bickering, causing all these drama. But there is a reason why Kobe Bryant had this same work ethic even when he was top of his game.
Yeah.
There's a reason why he pretty much handed the torch to LeBron and said, here you go. And that torch wasn't like saying, you're number one. It was saying, you understand the game, you understand the concept, you have pretty much dominated every aspect of the game, but it's your turn to really elevate that. Because innovating from that point on is where it gets really difficult. And it gets really stressful, because it's really the unknown, right? Like, it's easy to travel around the world and go somewhere else, but going to a remote place that no one's ever heard of, you're going to soon realize that there's no logistics of getting there. There is no communication. Yeah. That's where it gets really hard. Even simple travels. It's easy to fly into that city, but it's not. Most people don't think about the logistics from the airport to wherever they have to go next.
Yeah, totally.
Right. So for me, I really hit this huge roadblock and went through a lot of stress and depression when I got the awards. And I understand people who are saying awards don't matter and stuff like that. I don't think that's what they mean. I think they just don't. It's one thing to. It's easy to express a certain way, but it's hard to articulate it with words. And what I say to people, and what other people are trying to say, I believe, is the journey just started once you're there. Like, that's where it gets really difficult and tough. And that's where it gets really fun, actually, in my opinion, once you embrace it. So I love receiving these awards, and time to time I'll submit them, but I no longer use that to define me.
Hey guys, want to hop in here and tell you about one of our sponsors. That is us, the Bearded Tog. I want to tell you about mentorship, guys. So if you're looking to gain clarity in what to do, how do I do this? How can I make this happen? Answering the what and the hows and the why questions of your business and photography. Why do you exist? What do you want your branding to be? Who do you want to be in the world? What do you want to know about running a business? That is the clarity that you need to gain. And if you need the accountability behind it to keep you on track, to help you do your homework, to help you really follow through, because I know a lot of us, we buy courses, we go to workshops, and we just don't execute on the work. But what if you had somebody who was coaching you through that, who was mentoring you, discipling you during that time? That's me. That's what we do. We've had over 20 mentees who run through the Bearded Tog program, whether that be one-on-one or through our 12-month program. And I would love to have you. So if you're listening to this episode, you're going to get a special deal. We're going to do a 2-for-1 mentorship deal, or if you do the year-long mentorship, we're going to give you 2 months free if you sign up within the next month. So that is going to be an incredible offer. I would love to hear from you. So just shoot me an email, adam@adammason.com. We'd love to have you join the mentorship program. Most of our mentees like to do, kind of mission and vision for their branding statements, or they like to do, SEO, or just overall portfolio review. Adam, what do you see? How can I be better? How can I run a business that's fulfilling and profitable? And that's what we help with. So go to thebeardedtog.com to learn more, or shoot me an email. Have a wonderful day, guys. Thanks to the Bearded Tog for sponsoring our show.
I think that's the point right there, is that, the idea, I think there are a lot of people that get rangefinder or Junebug or Fearless or whatever, and it's like asking like if you ask like Lanny and Erica Man from Two Man if they care about their rewards, right? Like I don't think they will, right? It's almost like but it's like you said, like something along the journey. I think the idea for some of those awards, just like for anybody, is that it doesn't define like who you are, and you're not creating those images for the judgment of another person first. Like it's first, at least for you, like for your client, right? For your couple, for your own artistic experience, and then secondly for the award. And I think that is great. I love that. Whereas like I think there are people who want to win the award for like you said, like for it bringing them to the mountain, and be like, no, like this is like a guide on your journey of like, okay, yeah, it's like telling you you're doing a good job, but it's not the end, like you said.
It's not the end. And I think it's good to have goals. It's good to have aspirations. Yeah. We need guidance.
Totally.
We need a direction. But when you start using awards to make it a destination and not the journey, I think that's where it starts. That's where it's difficult.
Yeah.
Right. And I personally, I think awards are great. I think this is healthy, especially being self-employed.
Sure.
Self-employed, it's really difficult to have a metric of progress on your own besides money. Like I'm not money driven. So, for me, it doesn't matter if I bring in an extra 10% of income next year or 20, like that's kind of not significant for me. That doesn't change my life. But this sense of purpose, this sense of exploration, it's scarier for sure. It's not guaranteed, but that's why I'm also lately been vocal about other photographers who are super talented and have a lot of potential and have reached this top point. They have the ability to innovate and take risks and really define how our industry will go. But I don't believe they do enough, or at least I haven't seen or heard enough. There are definitely people who are trying. I see that. But I'm saying out of all the collective people who have the potential, that's still a small percentage. Because if we don't innovate as an industry, wedding photography will have its own parameters and definitions and will be moot. Like that'll be it. That's it. This is what it is. We can't innovate. We can't change. As technology is growing, we should be learning to adapting instead of saying this is the way it's always been. This is how it works. And that's difficult. It's difficult because we have no idea where to go, right? Like, but it's exciting at the same time. It really is.
How should we be adapting?
just being aware of not just in our industry, but everything else. Like, I personally dislike being labeled as a wedding photographer. I just think, as an industry, I wish we all together go at the same time go, we're not going to be called this. We're just going to be called a, you know, lifestyle photographer. I'd rather have that term.
Or just a photographer. Do you care about that? Like, I think that's probably where I sit, is like, okay, yeah, photographer would just be great, because it's like the other than for SEO, obviously, yeah, being able to call the wedding photographer is kind of like, whatever,
Yeah. Well, I just think, like, as a photographer, it's one thing to call yourself something. I think also we have to think about we not only have to educate our industry, but our couples as well. But that's the other difficult part, is what term can I use that it can still be associated with it, right? Like, when I had a corporate gig come up to me and said, "Hey, we want to hire you to do work," and I was like, "Well, I don't have it." They're like, "Can you send us some samples?" And I'm like, "Well, first of all, you found me. Second of all, I don't have any samples, but whatever you want, like, I can do."
Sure.
Like, I can deconstruct and do it easily. But it's very difficult for them to trust.
Totally.
That,
there's
right?
no past
like,
repertoire,
Yeah. So it's the same thing with, like, what do we call ourselves? So for me, I really, if we open the market and stop marketing just towards weddings and really emphasize the human connection, we can do anything. We can start having couples, regardless if they're married or not, have photo sessions, because one of the difficult things when you travel as a couple is having photos of yourselves. Totally. And if they're looking for a wedding photographer, I think in their heads they're like, "Oh no, but people are going to think we're going to be engaged and all this stuff," and they worry about that. But if we lift that up and just say, "We're just here for your connection, tell your story," it just opens the market up so much more. More than just weddings and elopements and engagements.
Totally. Well, and it's like, if
proposals.
if we really believe what we all say, that like moments matter, people matter, experiences matter, relationships matter. If we really believe all those things, then it's like, why are we not pushing the idea that, like, people shouldn't just get photos when they, officially by the law become a couple? Like, they should just have photos because they are a couple. Like, or, and people alone, like, people should have photos just because they are a person. And like, I always tell people that, like, we take photos of the things we care about, and the quality doesn't matter, at the base level of like why we want to take it. So it's like vacations, like you said, or food, right? Like, you obviously, like, post a lot of photos of food you eat, which I'm just like, man, these are amazing.
There's a story to that too. So I'll get back to that later.
But it's like, like, if we truly believed what we were talking about, like, we would try to push the idea that, like, photos should be it's hard to say, like, normative, like something that is just like something that happens often and it's okay. I think for photographers, the cool thing is like, luckily, if you're hanging out or you go somewhere with a photographer or two photographers, like, my favorite time I went to Iceland out of the multiple times I've been was with another photographer, because it was like, oh, we were playing off each other and like getting cool photos of each other, which is cool. And we knew each other's personalities, so that those photos really meant even more. And then at the same time, we're trying to like have this competition of like who could take the best photos of the places we were visiting. It was very cool. And it's like, we obviously, photographers want to say that photos matter, but it's like, how do we take away the occasionalism, if that's a word, from photography, and make it to be like hey, like, we should just do photos because it's a fun thing to do. Like, it should be the same level as like, oh, we're going to go drink at the bar, or hey, we're going to go get a good food. Like, hey, we're going to go get photos.
I think we have to, first of all, I think everyone cares. For sure. To a degree, it's a matter of, are you caring enough? And we are pretty much raised to follow rules in society, and the rules define us and control us, and we haven't really learned that rules are there to guide us a path, right? when you start seeing it that way, we can really show and tell people that love isn't this luxury that exists in weddings
Yeah.
or in the parameters of weddings. That love is really, it's universal. It's everywhere. It's even an interaction you have with a random stranger, that connection you have, just a little bit, that could be love. Like it's not
Totally.
like I'm gonna make out with you.
Yeah.
Love. No, but like like you care, right? It's a level and degree of careness. I think if we can somehow expand that and humanize what we do, right? Because there's a lot of people out there still that goes, well, photography is just photography. It's just what it is, right? It's just a thing. We get this a lot. We get this a lot where everyone thinks everyone's working from home right now and they're enjoying it. And they're like, this is what your life is like. It's so awesome. It's like, give it a week.
This is a byproduct of our job. Yeah.
Yeah. So for me, it was like, I don't know the answer to it.
Yeah.
Right. But I know the direction to it. And, but that's why I personally, from the beginning of my career, I would travel and I would either find couples when I'm traveling, or when I'm traveling, couples will find me. And I would take every opportunity to photograph them. Right. And it's a way for me to practice and understand myself and them. And for myself, it was like, yeah, we don't want to shoot like 50 weddings or stuff. Some people do. It's a lot. Honestly, I would do that if I could. But for me, it's like I need that practice. I need that interaction. I get obsessed with data as an experiences, and I'm like, I want to know more. I want to know more about people. I want to know, like, for couples to be in love when you photograph them, that's such an intimate, privileged moment that you can't get anywhere else. You really can't.
Totally.
Like, and if you're lucky, they're paying you. So, like, you get the best of all worlds. Like, you get, most people pay money to go to movies to see the best points of someone's story, right?
Yeah.
In an hour and a half, like, you get to feel it and see it unravel in front of you. And if you're empathetic, you kind of feel why their relationship makes them so special. And I think, it's a beautiful thing. And I really love telling this to people. Wedding photography has fundamentally saved and changed my life.
Yeah.
Not wedding photography. I'll say photography in itself. Not because it's this cool digital thing to have, but it really taught me how to feel and learn and become more empathetic, and realize that growing up, what I thought was a perfect way of living was just one set of data, that there isn't just one or 5 ways to live life, but there is hundreds and thousands and millions of paths to choose from.
Yeah, 100%.
And it's overwhelming at first. But I think choosing out of choice is a much beautiful and more emotional investment than choosing out of a few.
Yeah.
So yeah, I photography is big with me. Food is the same way. I think I joke around, and one of the reasons why I moved to New York is for the food. And started out as a joke, but now it's like a reality. Like, I have friends who visit here, and they're Instagramming all these places because they'll never be here, and they're showing the world, like, this is where I'm at. And I'm like thinking, one day I was like, wait, I'm so privileged. Like, this is every day for me. Like, literally,
it's every day, bro.
Every day. Like, if I there's literally a pie shop 15 minutes down the street. Literally amazing pie shop, right? Like, you can get that anywhere else in the world, but you just have to drive like hours to get it. Or pizza. All my good friends, he still says pizza is still pizza. I said I disagree with that. But I agree with it when I used to live in Ohio. Now I'm like, things you don't think about, like, okay, is the crust chewy but still crispy? Is the bottom still slightly burnt, but it folds and the oil doesn't go through? Does the cheese not separate completely? Like these things you never really care about.
Yeah.
But when you're walking down the street holding pizza with one hand and it falls apart, you're like, this is the end of the world. Like, what the hell, right? Like, so yeah, it's just having choice. And yeah, and so going back to awards and stuff, like I took a break from them mentally. I said I can't, if I'm going to evolve as a photographer. I've accomplished these things. I want to try and innovate now. Like I want to try to understand myself better. And for me, when I achieve something, in my mind, I don't go, I want to keep doing it again. I'm kind of like, okay, I did that. All right, what's next? Well, what else can I do? And it's such a weird feeling because I was never like that when I was working, my entire life. I just didn't care. But this time, this feeling of being alive and having a sense of purpose for myself, not for validation of others, was this next step, next journey. And even then, I don't let wedding photography or photography define who I am. Like you said, like you see yourself as a photographer. Sure. I see myself as a photographer, but I only see myself as an artist now. Like I just want to create things.
Yeah, totally.
And with or without the camera, like the camera is just a tool. I have a hard time empathizing with people who say, I can't carry a camera around because it reminds me of work.
Sure.
Because I think it's a very sad mindset to be in that your camera is work.
Yeah,
like
totally.
For me, being at the wedding and being immersed is work. But like, I don't know. Like I don't associate the camera itself being the job itself.
Yeah.
So,
and I think being at a wedding too, like especially all the communication before, like the wedding is the easiest, well, not the easiest, but it's like the payoff. Like I'm the most comfortable at the wedding day. I'm excited because it's like, okay, now we've been waiting a year or we've been waiting 18 months and we finally get there. So no, I get that for sure. One last question I want to ask you, kind of like, what would you say what advice would you give your past self? I feel like you're the kind of guy that would have some advice for your past self, and based on like what you've learned and moving to New York City, right, which is like a goal in and of itself for a lot of people. So yeah.
And moving to New York was never a goal of mine. Was never in my roadmap of my life. Like I always tell people I moved to New York because I originally was going to move to Chicago
for the pizza. No, I was kidding.
And well, hey, look, their pizzas, whatever, but it is still an amazing.
I love
cuisine.
it. Yeah,
I love it. Like I just love. I never thought I didn't know people were that passionate about that until I got there, and I joked around one time when I was drunk and did not get a good feedback, and I thought that was so comical. But New York, I just woke up one day and said, why am I not moving to New York? And I told myself, well, it's expensive, it's dirty, it's smelly, and the people are rude. So yeah, why would I go? And then my other brain was like, well, that's exactly why you have
exactly.
To go. You cannot live your life being comfortable. Like for me, I love comfort. I love complacency. However, I do not grow. And same thing with wedding photography. Jumping from corporate to weddings, everyone always goes, you got to ease into it. I kind of go, you have to be prepared financially, yes, but jump into it. Like just because you start getting to survival mode, you're just like hustling each day. You're like, I gotta make this work. Time is limited. Like you really feel that time is limited, and you're like, I gotta do this. I love it when people go, oh, you must have this day off, and I go, no. Like being an entrepreneur, a true entrepreneur is literally have a never-ending list of a never-ending to-do list. It just never ends.
Totally.
and you're working 24/7, like literally, like I would be dreaming about weddings,
Yep.
right? Like I dreamed of not making, like missing one, and I just was like, what, like that, you know, that's you know, it's yeah. But to give advice to my younger self, and this is not just for photography, this is just in
Yeah.
general.
This is the woo wisdom right here.
People only know what's best for you in their own perspective.
Mm.
And in the end of the day, people don't know what's best for them. And you only know what's best for you if you learn to fall several times
Totally.
and learn from it, right? And that everything is solvable. Nothing is not solvable. It's just certain things takes a certain amount of steps, but I think we're so used to saying step 1, 2, 3, here you go. We need to really accept the fact that you have to take set. It's usually 1, 2, 3, then 1, 2, 3 again, then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and you'll get there. And no one will really remember how much you've struggled or failed. They're only going to remember when you succeed.
That's true. Yeah.
So that alleviates a lot of stress and pressure of this constant thought of, well, like, what are they going to say? Are they going to, like, when I started winning all those awards and went viral, I was kind of like, oh shoot! And now everything I post, they're going to be like, oh, he posted that. like, what kind of photo is that? Right? Like all the things I used to do to other photographers when I was arrogant. I was like, no, like I can't
Totally.
take this. So, you know, and I realized none of that matters. None of that matters. What matters is, are you moving forward? Are you doing your best? Then do it. And doing your best is not saying you perfected everything, but you're giving as much effort as you can, and you recognize where your faults are, and you're willing to work on those too. And being vulnerable. I think as we, you know, when you think about wedding photography, everyone has this caricature of what a wedding photographer should be like. And that's only 1 or 2 personalities we see it from. But I think what I want people to really take away is being genuine and being honest lasts a lot longer, not only for your couples, but for yourself. Because when you try to be something you're not, that's a lot of energy you got to put out.
Totally.
And it's sustainable for maybe a short amount of time, but in the long time, it's not. And why I push for innovation a lot in our industry is everyone is going to come across a time where we're going to really give up and go, well, that was a good run. I'm tired and I hate the wedding industry. I hate wedding photography. I'm bye. Right. And I really, if we don't act that way, if we foster it and innovate it, I think we can grow with it. And if you decide to break up with wedding photography or for anyone else, you don't hate it because you hate it. Like you leave it because it's time for you to grow another way.
Yeah.
Because I see a lot of people who leave this industry and their attitude is pretty much like, you know, the industry stinks and it's been rotten, or it's become this thing where it's not the same it used to be. And I kind of go, well, you had a lot of power and responsibility to change that
right.
too.
Yeah. 100%.
Like, and that's how I live my life now. Every time I complain about something, I take a step back and I go, well, can I do something about it? If I can, then do it. If I can't, then I should shut up. Like, it's just like it's just more of a proactive approach to life than dwelling on something in the past and arguing about it. Because I was raised, I was pretty much a pretty pessimistic person growing up. And now it's like, I'm still pessimistic to devil's advocate myself, but I keep my chin up. And even when the tough gets tough, right? It's kind of like, you take those baby steps moving up forward, you look back and you're like, oh shoot, I've actually made it.
Yeah.
So yeah, with weddings and awards and food and stuff, it's just that they're all in tandem. They all work together. Food, yeah, the Instagram thing.
Yeah, tell me about it.
That's a fun. Yeah. So what happened was, I travel a lot. Obviously, I eat a lot. What I realized was when I was eating out and posting real time what I was doing, I would get messages and emails from people, couples or whoever, saying like, "Hey, like, are you free or whatnot?"
Yeah.
Or like, "Where's our photos? Like, how's it going?" Like, and I just got really kind of like felt violated. Like, this is like, I've been cooped up for, what people don't see is like, I've been cooped up for 7 hours in my room editing and trying to stay focused and do these things. And the moment I step out, they're micromanaging me,
Yeah.
which is not, it's very reasonable,
sure.
with couples, they're excited to see
Yeah.
your photos, and I definitely understand that and
Yeah.
love that. But at the same time, I'm also human too, and I'm just kind of like, the first time's fine, but after like several occasions for different
Totally.
people, like I see a pattern.
Once a month. Yeah.
So I don't reveal anything
Yeah.
at all till like the end of the week, or I'll remember like a week and a half later, I'll post all the food.
Yeah,
at
all the
once.
food you've eaten that week.
Yeah, and a lot of things came out of that. One, some people were upset I didn't post a location, which I'm fine with. I'm just kind of like, if you really want to know, this goes for anyone who listens. If you really want to know, reach out to me and I'll let you know.
Just DM based on the image.
I want you to interact with me. But I don't want. The point of the food is to show that. The other point is, I get reactions from people messaging me going, "Gee, all of this at once," and I would joke around. I'm sorry, everyone who like believes me when I say this. I go, yeah. I go, what do you think? And on top of that, there is one time where a friend of mine, he's a chef. He's probably one of the few people in my life I really, he doesn't know this, but I look up to, because he is someone that has followed his dreams and became a chef, and was so scared of becoming one. And because he was an engineer, so it's kind of like weird to go to engineering and go to culinary school. And he goes, "I'm coming into New York. I was like, can you take me out? Can you show me around?" And I said, "Well, what do you want to do?" He goes, "Eat." And I go, "Well, for like, how much time do you have? Like, how long are you here for?" He goes, "Only for 7 hours." And I was like, "Well, what do you want to do for 7 hours?" He goes, "Eat." So we picked 7 places in 7 hours to eat. Oh, we thought we were upset because his flight got delayed for another 3 hours, and we could have crammed 2 more places. We're like, oh, so that's the only time where like that racked up.
Sure. That's funny.
But yeah, that's how the food thing started. And it's really interesting with what's going on right now with self-quarantine and self-isolation, or social distancing. Is a lot of my meals right now are being home cooked, right? So I was like, okay, I need to show that. Like, I can't make the excuse that I'm just eating out all the time. And so, but yeah, it's really cool, and I think it's fun for me. I know, I do watch who stays on, who doesn't stay, and it's really interesting to see the fall off of like who can take it and who can't. Like, it's just really, I just really enjoy that. I just really enjoy, like, it's a marathon, right? Like, so yeah, I think it's really interesting for me. It's fun for me, and I think Instagram and social media and stuff like that, I think we try too hard to cater towards our audience or our likes or our followers. We cater too much. It's funny how it's ironic, right? Like, you create this account and people follow you because of who you are, and then you want validation from them. All of a sudden, like, you're in this tough position where you want to please them, when this whole time they're pleased with you. So I always tell, I do crazy stuff in my stories, or I don't think they're crazy, but other people think it's weird, and I just do it because I'm like, yeah, why not? Like, if I do stuff with shiny jackets and tiny hands, and that sounds really weird on the audio, but but it has to be weird, right? Like, but it helps me. A lot of those things help me kind of realized that just being who you are, just it makes my life less stressful, and therefore I think helps my creativity, really. So, but yeah, life's a journey, and it's amazing, and I always tell people it took me so long to figure that out, but I enjoy life a lot more. Like I love life. I love it.
That's awesome. Well, dude,
Yeah.
that was awesome. I want to ask one last question, of course, for people who want to go see the food. Tell people where is the best place to go see that and see your work, man.
So my Instagram, wanderingwoo.com, WANDERINGWOO. Oh, that's my website. But my
right.
Instagram and handle, same thing, Wandering Woo as well. Yeah. So that, I'm pretty, that's probably where I'm most active. Yeah. I'm also open to anyone. If you have any questions or anything, just message me. Sometimes I'll get back right away. Sometimes I'll get back forever. It just really depends if I'm traveling or if I'm so focused on work. I just don't look at my phone. My phone's actually on Do Not Disturb all day long.
Same.
Like,
I just leave it
because I cannot. I have attention deficit disorder, so it's like I can't be looking at it, or I just can't do work.
Totally.
So, but yeah,
awesome, man.
Thank you.
All right, folks, you heard it there. Paul is an incredible person, incredible photographer. Love his story. I think he's been to over 40 countries now, too. So if you're into the destination game, he is the man. And seriously, his Instagram is just full of food photos, usually all the time. And it's been absolutely incredible to have him on. So thank you guys so much for having a wonderful day. Go join the Facebook group. Hit us up on Patreon. Have a wonderful day, guys. Keep being awesome.